Welcome to the Explainer. Have you ever stopped and wondered what it really takes to build one of those online stores you probably use all the time? Well, today, we're going to break down exactly that, the front end of a modern e-commerce app. And we're getting our insights straight from the source, a Q&A session between a web development instructor and his students.
Okay, so here's the game plan. We're going to follow a developer's journey from start to finish. We'll kick things off with the big challenge, look at let's call it the inefficient way of solving it, and then dive into the right way with something called dynamic routing. After that, we'll see how data makes it all work, get into the right mindset, and finally, figure out what it takes to go from just a front end to a full stack app.
All right, section 1, the e-commerce challenge. Look, every great app starts with a pretty simple idea, right? And this one's super relatable. We just want to build an online store to sell our stuff. Simple as that.
So, right away you hit your first big hurdle. How do you actually display all your products so people can buy them? I mean, if you've got 100 different items, do you need 100 different pages? When someone clicks on, say, a blue hoodie, they expect to land on a page just for that blue hoodie. So, how do you actually build that?
Okay, which leads us to the inefficient, static approach. The most obvious way to solve this, which also happens to be deeply, deeply flawed. The first instinct for a lot of new developers is to take a really literal, one-for-one approach.
And by literal, I mean one page for every product, one folder for every category. In fact, a student in the original Q&A asked this exact question. They were like, wait, do I really have to make a male folder, a female folder, and a kids folder? And then inside each of those, a separate file for every single t-shirt and hoodie.
And that question, that right there is the core of the problem. Okay, maybe you can handle 10 products, but what if you have 1,000 or 10,000? Just try to imagine manually creating 10,000 separate files. And then what happens when you want to change, the color of the Buy Now button? You'd have to go and edit all 10,000 files one by one. It's a complete maintenance nightmare. It just doesn't scale.
So if that's the wrong way, what's the right way? How do the pros handle this? Well, here's the secret. They don't build 1,000 dumb pages, they build one really smart template. And the magic behind this is a concept called dynamic routing.
So what is dynamic routing? Well, think of it like this. Instead of handcrafting a unique page for every single product, you create one master template, like a blueprint. This one page, this one template, is smart enough to look at the URL in your browser and say, they're asking for product number 123, and then it just fills itself in with the right info. It's way more elegant and way more powerful.
Let's break down how that actually works step by step. First, you click on a product link. Simple enough. That link has a unique ID in it, something like products/123. The browser doesn't go looking for a page called 123. Instead, it loads that one single smart template page. Then, and this is the cool part, the template grabs that ID from the URL, uses it to fetch all the details for product 123, and boom, it displays the right product. One page, endless possibilities.
All right, on to our next section, making data work. So we've got this awesome smart template. That's great, but right now, it's basically an empty shell. It doesn't know anything. We need a way to feed it the actual product info, the names, the prices, the pictures, all of it.
This is where the instructor from our source material really drove a point home. He said, when you have repetition, instead of manually creating each product card, you use a function like .map to do it automatically. Basically, you stop hard-coding stuff. If you see a pattern, like a list of products, you never copy and paste. Instead, you write a little bit of code that takes your data and builds that pattern for you automatically. And here's what that data usually looks like. See, it's not complicated code, it's just a clean, structured list. Developers would call this an array of objects. You can think of it like a spreadsheet. Each row is a product, and each column is a piece of information about that product. Its ID, name, category, and price. Having it organized like this makes it super easy for our code to read and use. So, to actually work with that data, developers have these handy tools, these built-in functions. For example, .mapping is what you use to loop through every single product in your list and tell the browser, okay, for each one, create a product card. Then you have .filter, which is perfect for when a user clicks a category button, like female. It just shows the products that match. And something like .slice is great for just grabbing, say, the first 4 items to show in a featured product section.
And all of this, it brings us to something that's maybe the most important part of this whole journey, the developer's mindset. Because, being a good developer isn't just about memorizing code. It's about how you approach and solve problems.
This was the instructor's #1 piece of advice. He said, development is not the hard part. Anyone can do that with practice. The most important thing is doing your R&D, research and development. And that's so true. Memorizing code just doesn't work because the problems are always changing. The real skill, the one that lasts, is learning how to learn, how to research answers for yourself.
And this, right here, shows the two different ways to approach a problem. You've got the novice, who just asks, tell me what code to write, give me the answer. Then you have the pro, who thinks, okay, let me research this. What's the best way to solve it? It's that classic give a man a fish scenario. The pro doesn't want the fish, they want to learn how to fish so they can solve the next problem all by themselves.
And this is what that pro research process actually looks like in practice. You start by really understanding the problem. Then you start searching, using smart keywords. You read the official documentation, not just some random blog post. You try things, you break things, and you learn from your errors. It's this cycle that builds real solid expertise over time.
Okay, let's move on to the final piece of the puzzle, going from front end to full stack. At this point, we've built a really impressive dynamic front end. It's beautiful, it works, but can it actually sell anything? To make this a real-world application, we have to talk about what separates a simple project from a real product.
Yeah, our dynamic front end is a fantastic project. It's something you could definitely show off in a portfolio. But as the instructor pointed out, it's not a complete product yet. To make it something a business could actually use to sell things, you have to connect it to all the back-end systems that make the magic happen.
And that path to a real product usually means integrating a few key things. First, something called a headless CMS, so the store owner can add new products without ever touching the code. Second, a database to keep track of user accounts, what's in their shopping carts, and past orders. And third, and this is a big one, a payment gateway like Stripe, so you can actually, take people's money securely. These are the things that turn a pretty website into a real, functioning business tool.
So when you boil it all down, what's the real difference between a project that you build and a product that people use? It's all about connection. It's about connecting your code to the real world of data, users, and commerce. It's that leap from making 1,000 static pages to one dynamic template, and from building a standalone front end to a fully integrated system. And that is a journey absolutely worth taking.